The Opening of the Mouth Set, an exploration of the passing between the worlds of the living and the dead in ancient Egypt, by Liz August. The opening of the mouth set was a group of tools used during the opening of the mouth ritual of ancient Egypt. This was an elaborate and important ritual that allowed statues or mummies to use their mouths during the afterlife, and is also hypothesized to be connected to both symbolic and literal birth and rebirth. The set was a group of objects sometimes stirred in a limestone slab, into which had been cut recesses that conformed to their shapes. The recesses were usually symmetrical, with the tools arranged in 3 columns lengthwise. There is a bit of variation in some slabs, with some omitting some recesses and some adding additional ones. The set consists of 4 straight-sided flared cups and 2 narrow-necked bottles, with rounded bodies and flaring rims. Half of these vessels are made of dark stone and half of white stone or crystal. The vessels aren't very deep and usually just have a small depression in the top, implying ritual as opposed to practical use. In the set was a pesachkef knife, which was usually a flake of flint, limestone, or alabaster. It was usually 10 to 20 centimeters in length with a forked end. Some are recorded to have blunt or square edges, and some are recorded to have sharpened or serrated edges. Regardless, its name means material to divide. These knives are also referred to as fishtail knives, forked lances, or fishtail lanceheads. Lastly, there are 2 narrow rectangular blades made of dark stone, said to be meteoric iron. Pictured are the hieroglyphs for them, from the papyri found at the mortuary temple of Neferikar at Abusar, 2474 BCE. They always occur in a pair and are mirror images of each other. Their name, Neteruj, means 2 stars. The opening of the mouth ceremony set was found in the pre-dynastic period, 6000 to 3100 BCE. They were rare after the First Dynasty, but some have been found made from other types of stone, from Old Kingdom tombs up to the 18th Dynasty, 1550 to 1292 BCE. The set was found in Egypt, mostly in Upper Egypt, but also in Madi and Fayum. Slabs have primarily been found in private tombs of 5th and 6th dynasties. Sets without slabs have been found as early as the 4th dynasty, when a set inscribed for Khufu was excavated in the Menekar Valley temple area. The earliest description of ritual is in the pyramid texts, which are religious texts of Old Kingdom Egypt carved into the walls of pyramids. The sequence of offerings seems to have been inserted into lists in private tombs about 150 years after the first occurrence of them in the pyramid texts, around the end of the 6th dynasty. The Abusir papyri lists the elements of the set in the inventories of temple equipment. The opening of the mouth ritual was a sequence of speeches and actions that allowed a mummy or cult statue to partake of offerings. A dead person had to be reborn to participate in the afterlife. It was performed for both the royal and non-royal dead alike. According to historian Anne Roth, the sequence suggests that, like a newborn, the dead person could not at first eat adult food. It highlights the extreme importance of food in Egyptian mortuary religion. Although the main theory is based on the one being pictured here, there are various other theories about what the ceremony actually was. For example, historian E. Otto says that the New Kingdom version of the ritual is actually a bunch of different rituals put together: a statue ritual, an offering ritual, an embalming ritual, a funerary one, and a slaughtering ritual, followed by a temple ritual. However, historian R. Van Walsum says that the set is not for the opening of the mouth ritual, but instead for an embalming ritual. However, this ignores the presence of the vessels, which are explicitly said to contain wine and beer, as opposed to embalming materials in the pyramid texts. The following is an explanation of the ceremony as written in the pyramid texts. These spells occur on the north wall of the burial chamber of King Unas. All of the items besides the perishable food ones can be found in the opening of the mouth set, and none of the items of the set are omitted from the text. The gods Osiris and Thoth are called upon to seize all those who hate Unas during a spell. They are asked not to loosen themselves from such enemies. The verb used for loosen is a form that is related to one that is normally applied to separation of a child from the womb of a mother. A poured offering occurs, which some historians relate to magic used to expedite birth, which was called flee. The second spell is accompanied by the burning of incense. It reassures King Unas of his closeness with his Kes. His Kes is the double represented by the statue or the mummy, pictured to the right here. According to Anroth's interpretation, the double is in the womb along with Unas. 4 gods associated with the 4 cardinal points, Horus, Seth, Thoth, Diwani, as well as Osiris and Khenti Urti, are said to go forth with his Kes. Anroth says the repetition creates a sort of peer pressure that indicates sympathetic magic, and that such a formula may have been used to entice a child from its mother's womb. Closeness of kin to his Kes is emphasized by an embrace. During the embrace, the following is recited. The arm of your Kes is before you, the arm of your Kes is behind you. The leg of your Kes is before you, the leg of your Kes is behind you. Then the Eye of Horus is offered. Cold water and 2 pellets of natron are offered. King Unas is told to go forth to his son Horus, who has brought with him the Eye of Horus. The spell ends with, "Come, you have been summoned," being repeated 4 times. 5 pellets of southern natron from El Kab are offered. King Unas is then directed to open his mouth. The spit of Horus and Seth are mentioned. 5 pellets of northern natron from Wadi Natron are offered to the mouth of the deceased. The mouth of Unas is compared with the mouth of a calf on the day of his birth, ready to nurse. Incense is offered and identified with the incense of the 4 gods associated with the cardinal points of the Kes of Unas and of itself. Unas's fellow gods are said to cleanse his limbs. The Eye of Horus is offered again. According to Roth, these spells represent the birth and cleaning of a newborn. The Peshekef is offered and is said to fix the lower jaw of the deceased. The mouth is opened with the 2 Nete Rouge blades, which are identified with Upper and Lower Egypt. Pellets of northern and southern incense and an unknown substance are presented. 2 containers that represent the breasts of Horus and the breasts of Isis are offered. Oddly, the former contains milk and the latter is empty. Roth says these spells mimic the nursing of the newborn child. A black and white bottle are lifted and identified with the black and white eyes of Horus. Roth says their light and dark color may serve to further distinguish the newborn and his placenta. The deceased is described as surrounded by offerings and is presented with a fresh cake. 5 cloves of garlic are given to King Unas and compared to teeth. Another heavier cake is presented. Then wine is offered in the black and white bottles. This sequence represents the weaning and teething of a child, says Roth. Wine can be used to numb the gums during the painful process, and the cake was something hard for the baby to cut its teeth against. The deceased is given a full meal with meat, wine, and beer. Lastly, possibly 7 sacred oils were then used to anoint the statue or mummy, but it is also possible that this was part of a different ritual. The number 7 is representative of the belt of Isis. Often, the Peshekef is offered to the deceased immediately before the spell of the opening of the mouth, but the function is debatable and there are different interpretations. Historian W.M.F. Petrie thought it was a hunting weapon. Historian H. Schaefer thought they were typical table knives used during the pre-dynastic period. O.H. Myers speculated that they were similar to tools used for the Jewish ritual of circumcision. Historian Van Welsum said it was used in the terminal pre-dynastic and early proto-dynastic periods as a wedge to hold the jaw of a corpse closed during the process of mummification, and that the rest of the set was also used during this process. This interpretation is based upon a spell in the pyramid text, in which the Peshish Kef is said to make firm the lower jaw of the deceased. The line refers to the presentation of the knife and has various different interpretations depending on the historian. 3 interpretations are as follows. O Unas, I establish for thee thy lower jaw. I have established for you your jaws, so that they are divided. Or, I have made firm for you your lower jaw to your face, you having been divided, the Peshish Kef. This presentation focuses on Anne Roth's interpretation of the ceremony. Anne Roth states that these tools were used for a ritual mimicking birth and childhood. In the pre-dynastic period, death meant a return to the womb. She says that the Peshish Kef has both a practical use and a ritual use in the process of childbirth and rebirth of the dead. Both the Peshish Kef and the Nit Rouge are offered in the pyramid texts after the spells that mimic the king's passage through the birth canals and prior to him beginning to nurse. This implies that it was used soon after the birth of a child. In ancient Egypt, women gave birth in a squatting position on a raised stool of bricks, and they needed a proper tool to cut the rubbery and slippery umbilical cord. Roth hypothesizes that one or both of the knives was used to cut the umbilical cord of a baby. The triangular shape of the Peshish Kef corresponds to the shape of a uterus, and this physical trait would have increased its magical significance and restricted its particular use during this time. The problem with this is that the Peshish Kef was associated with the jaw. How can this be related to the umbilical cord? Roth says that the presentation of the Peshish Kef can be explained as a ritual gesture that functioned originally as an announcement, but that developed a magical meaning. Until a birth, children get nutrition directly from the umbilical cord. When it's cut, the child must get nourishment more actively. Perhaps the Peshish Kef was presented before the face of the baby after the cord was cut, in order to show the baby that it needed to get its food by nursing now. Red staining from ochre is on some opening of the mouth set artifacts, and may hint at this process. Over time, the gesture could have developed a second meaning, in which the baby was magically bestowed the rigidity of jaw necessary to nurse. It's interesting to note that the tradition of cutting the umbilical cord with a tool that itself was divided may have continued to Islamic times. Arid ibn Sayyid al-Qati Qurtubi, a 10th century Andalusian physician, wrote information on childbirth. He highlighted the fact that in Egypt it was traditional to cut the umbilical cord with a reed split in 2. It could be that he was referencing a ritual connected with birth, or was referencing a specific midwifery custom. Either way, it helps to underscore the theory that the Peshish Kef was used as something to cut an umbilical. The opening of the mouth set is important because cultural rituals show what a community felt was significant and important enough to be treated with pausing life and celebrating or honoring it. In this case, this event would be the transition between life and death. The linking of birth and death rituals. Anne Roth's theory regarding the use of the opening of the mouth set in ceremony is of particular importance because, in her own words, the connection of childbirth with women, sex, and blood is viewed with alarm in many societies, and discussion and depiction of the process is avoided for the same reasons that is considered powerful and mysterious. The extent of such taboos in ancient Egypt and among historians itself deserves further study.